feeling like sunshine, like springtime, like something's in the water and I'm taking a deep dive. I'm feeling so weightless, like I'm gonna make it, and nothing in the universe can take this. I can see it clearly now, nothing gonna bring me down. I got my head held high, I'm on my way, and I'm following the signs to my happy place. I'm walking in the light of a brand new day, and I'm right where I belong in my happy place. I got my head held high, I'm on my way, and I'm following the signs to my happy place. I'm walking in the light of a brand new day, and I'm right where I belong in my happy place. And I'm right where I belong in my happy place. And I'm right where I belong in my happy place.
Welcome to the show tonight. This is the Yong Lu Lin School of Medicine's Healthy Longevity webinar at National University of Singapore. Thanks for joining us. We have an interesting show tonight. We have José Corderio on, and typically the longevity research field is really a whole spectrum of people doing research, and often we focus on health span and aging and age-related disease. But there's a whole sector of people in the field that I think that Jose is one of the most visionary at, which is thinking about what the future can be like and whether immortality is something that is beyond just a term and something that we can actually have. And his book, which I hope you can see, called The Death of Death, is what we'll be talking about tonight. But before we get to that, I want to remind you, first of all, to use the Q&A function to ask questions. And we'll be hearing first from Jessica Liu, who's a PhD student in the center, and she'll be presenting her research on remote monitoring technology for measuring cardiovascular function.
Thank you for the kind introduction. Good evening, everybody. My name is Jessica, and the paper I am presenting is on remote monitoring technologies for measuring cardiovascular functions. So, what are remote monitoring technologies, or RMTs? They fall under the category of digital health, which encompasses mobile health, wearable connected devices, telehealth, etc. RMTs allow objective, consistent, and continuous collection of physiological data, which can provide insights about the level of function of our organ systems. You may know some of the popular RMTs already, such as the Apple Watch and Fitbit activity trackers, the Abbott Libre continuous glucose monitor, and the Oura Ring, which is well known for its sleep monitoring capabilities. Our question was, what are the RMTs measuring cardiovascular functions in community-dwelling adults? In order to do that, we decided to conduct a systematic review. Our systematic review, titled Remote Monitoring Technologies for Measuring Cardiovascular Functions in Community-Dwelling Adults, was published earlier this year in the journal Neuroscience. We also had a secondary question, which was, what is the accuracy of the RMTs measuring cardiovascular functions? So a systematic review has a very structured process, and the first step is to identify these records from the databases, of which we identified from 3 databases. And then after removing duplicate records and screening, we then continued and followed a strict criteria for selecting the correct articles to include. So these criteria would include time frame, so from January 1st, 2020 to April 7th, 2022, and it has to be used unsupervised and non-invasive in healthy community-dwelling adults. And then after the screening and selecting for eligible articles, we then appraise them or assess them by 2 independent reviewers. So over 250 articles were included, and in those articles, we represented over 300,000 individuals, of which 50% were female. And they had an average age from 19 to 88 to 89 years old. And there were over 200 distinct devices that were reported, and the most frequently used technology was photoplethysmography, or PPG, which is a type of optical sensing technology. Close to 50% of the measurements that were reported were heart rate measurements, and around 42% of the devices were worn on the wrist. So from all the devices that we found, all of them varied in continuous monitoring capabilities, their accuracy, their feasibility and usability, and their cost. And there were 9 devices that were reported more frequently, so in over 3 articles, and all of them were sufficiently accurate. Over half were sufficiently precise, and 4 were commercially available in December last year. And the top 4 most reported RMTs that we found was the AliveCore Cardio Mobile handheld ECG, the Fitbit Charge 2 activity tracker, and the Polar H7 and H10 heart rate sensors. So in conclusion, this overview provided to healthcare professionals and researchers a list of the available RMTs for monitoring the cardiovascular system. However, a limitation is that while we have a list of so many available devices, we actually don't know which one we should use in our clinical studies. Thus, the next step is to develop a practical guide describing the selection process for a suitable RMT for measuring cardiovascular functions in community-dwelling adults. Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you at Clinical soon.
Thanks, Jessica. José Cordero is a fellow at the World Academy of Art and Science and an author of the global bestseller, The Death of Death, which I just talked about. He studied engineering at MIT, economics at Georgetown University, management at INSEAD in Fontainebleau, France, and science at the Universidad Simón Bolívar in Caracas, Venezuela. So he's a very diverse educational background. He's a leading expert on technological change, future trends, and economic forecasting. He's published more than 10 books in several languages, and The Death of Death has appeared in there's at least 8 languages listed here, probably more since then. And he's appeared on programs with the BBC, CNN, and a whole range of other channels you've heard of. Today he's going to talk about his topic, The Death of Death, the scientific possibility of physical immortality, and I think also importantly, the moral defense of this possibility. So we're excited to hear what you have to say, Jose.
Thank you very much. It is a pleasure for me to be in your program. I have watched already about half of the episodes, sometimes live, so I know the quality of your program and all the people that you invite from many different areas. You invite people, not only biologists, medical doctors, but economists, investors, and even lawyers. So it is good for an engineer like me to talk also about what is happening in longevity. I am related to different international organizations, and I began as an engineer at MIT, and in my first life, I was working in the energy industry, but I have moved into biotech and longevity. I also lead the Millennium Project, which began as the futuristic part of the United Nations University for Iberoamerica, which is Latin America plus the Iberian Peninsula, Spain and Portugal. And we talk about the global challenges of the world, humanity, and we published a lot of material about the future. In our latest report, we talk about the year 2050, and we show 3 scenarios. In one of those scenarios, we have already controlled aging, and we are beginning to reverse aging. We presented this at the United Nations, so we are very proud about this. And also at the regional level for Latin America, we have done a forecast for the year 2030, also different scenarios. And in one of those scenarios, we are already, again, controlling aging. I had the pleasure to present this at the World Economic Forum, Davos, and then also to meet with people like the Nobel Prize in Literature, Mario Vargas Llosa, who is very interested in longevity. Because he's also starting another marriage, so he wants to be well and healthy for that. But again, many of these ideas that I'm going to be talking about, we started at Singularity University. I am one of the founding faculty of Singularity University in the year 2009 with 2 other MIT colleagues, Ray Kurzweil and Peter Diamandis. Also both from MIT and other people. This university which is not really a university, it's like executive education, began in 2009 at NASA Ames Research Center in Silicon Valley with the support of groups like Google and Cisco and other companies to think about the future and exponential technologies. This is based on the idea by Ray Kurzweil, again, this engineer from MIT, director of engineering at Google and main founder of Singularity University, that by the year 2045, we will become immortal. This is a very powerful, very interesting idea related to immortality and the singularity. He talked about this in his international bestseller, The Singularity is Near, published in 2005. And he talks about exponential change, and this happening also even in biology and medicine because it has been digitized, and that by 2045, we might become basically immortal by age reversal. This is based on the idea of exponential technologies, exponential changes, and things are changing faster, becoming smaller, cheaper, and better. This is beginning to happen now with aging itself. If we look at life expectancy, it has grown incredibly from the time of the Roman Empire, 2,000 years ago, when life expectancy was between 20 and 25 years. It took centuries until about the year 1900, when we went over 40 years of average lifespan. Now we are reaching close to 80, but this is still increasing. We are going to reach 100 and even more. This is moving fast. People don't understand the difference between exponential changes and linear changes. And so we normally talk about if we think linearly, if we walk linearly and we walk 30 steps linearly, each step of 1 meter, after 30 steps, we have walked 30 meters. But if we could walk exponentially and we double, after 30 doublings, we would have walked about 1 billion meters and gone around planet Earth 26 times. This is difficult to understand because we think linearly, but technology is changing exponentially, even, I repeat, biology and medicine today. When I went to MIT over 40 years ago, we used these punch cards. They were IBM punch cards, and they were basically 1K of memory, 1K. There were different sizes, but average was like about 100 by 10. 100 by 10 was 1,000, 1K. I used this at MIT, but then we moved from mechanical memories to electromagnetic memories. And the first floppy disk of 8 inches of size were also 1K of memory, from 1K mechanical to 1K electromagnetic. And then the floppy disk kept on improving and getting more power. From 1K, we moved to 512K to 1.4 mega. And today, we have pen drives which are in the order of terabytes. So in the last 4 decades, we have gone from 1K to 1 terabyte. And this has not stopped. This continues and is moving faster, again, thanks to exponential technologies. And not only with computers, I repeat, with biology. The first human genome sequence began in the year 1990. And it took 13 years until 2003, and the USA government put over $1 billion, 13 years, to sequence the first human genome. Today, in 2023, it takes about $200 to do the full sequence of the human genome in a few days. But this is going to take only 1 hour, and it will cost $10. This is even faster in biology than what is happening with computers. So biology is being digitized. I want to show you my human genome. I have done my human genome sequence many times, complete sequence, and also partial sequence. I will show you my partial sequence so that you don't know everything about me. One of the best companies for partial sequencing is 23andMe. And once you sequence your genome, you will know which diseases you might have according to your genes. This is fantastic to know what you might die of so that you don't die of that. So that you don't die of that. Also, you will know about your ancestors. This is my paternal life according to my genome. And you can see that from my father's side, I have famous people related to me like Genghis Khan. So no one mess around with me. On my mother's side, you can see that I am related to Maria Antoinette. So I have a very nice pedigree between Genghis Khan and Maria Antoinette. Today, thanks to genome sequencing, we can verify if your father is really your father, and not only your father, but other ancestors. But more interesting than looking into the past is looking into the future, And let me tell you, we are the last human generation that has not been designed. In the future, we will design our descendants. For example, at Singularity University, I did this experiment with one of my students sharing genes. This was a theoretical experiment to see how the children would be if we select certain types of genes for our descendants. This will be normal very soon. Because at the end of the day, we are just data. Our human genome is 3 gigabytes. 3 gigabytes of data. And I repeat, we already have a USB drives of 1 terabyte. So in 1 terabyte USB drive, I can put the genome sequence of 333 humans of 3 gigabytes plus a little mouse. So the human genome is not that big, it's not that complicated. In fact, in the year 2000, the scientists for the first time using synthetic biology, created the first genome of an artificial virus. They created a virus. In 2010, a bacteria, Craig Venter and his team created an artificial bacteria. Bacteria are obviously bigger and have more genes and more base pairs of nucleotides than a virus. So how long it will take for science and technology to create artificial humans? I repeat, as you can see, the human genome is only 3 gigabytes. So due to exponential changes, this is going to be soon. To talk about the future, I love science fiction. And I visited Sir Arthur C. Clarke in Sri Lanka, in his home, about 15 years ago. He's very famous for science fiction, Space Odyssey 2001, and his 3 laws of the future. He said about 50 years ago, the first law of the future, when a famous scientist says that something is possible, he's probably right. But when he says it is impossible, he's probably wrong. Second law of the future, the only way of discovering the limits of the possible is to venture past those limits into the impossible. And third law of the future, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And we are going to see magic in the next few years. In fact, if we look into the past, 30 years ago, personal computers were becoming popular. 20 years ago, mobile phones. 10 years ago, Google and Facebook were all over the world. So what will happen in the next 10, 20, 30 years? I am convinced that we are going to control aging and we are going to have immortal, ageless cells. This has been the biggest dream of humanity since the beginning of history itself. The first book ever written by humans, close to 5,000 years ago, is the Epic of Gilgamesh. And it is about immortality. We always wanted immortality. The Mesopotamians, the Egyptians. The Book of the Dead is a book about immortality. The Chinese, Emperor Qin Shi Huang, who built the Terracotta Army, he wanted to be immortal. And the Spanish wanted to be immortal. They were looking for the fountain of eternal youth when they discovered America. Even in all religions, for example, in the Bible, you can see the last enemy that shall be destroyed is death. Corinthians 15:26. All religions look immortality, but now this can become scientifically possible for the first time. And it is good to say this in COVID times, because if you look at the number one risk factor for COVID is age. Age is the number one risk factor of death. And COVID, however, is a very small pandemic in historic terms, very small pandemic. The biggest pandemic that we know of in recorded history was the Black Death the bubonic plague that killed 1 out of 3 Europeans. A third of the population of Europe died because of the bubonic plague. But there have been many other huge, huge plagues, like smallpox, the Spanish flu, that, by the way, was not Spanish and it was not the flu, also killed close to 50 million people 100 years ago. That would be 4 times more today, 5 times more. Or AIDS. AIDS is estimated to have killed now 40 million people. So all of these are big, big pandemics compared to COVID. But if COVID paralyzed the planet for 2 years, what should we do for the biggest pandemic of all, which is aging? Aging is the biggest pandemic in history, even bigger than the bubonic plague. And it is the #1 risk factor for dying of anything. If you look at influenza, cancer, Alzheimer's disease, heart attacks, the #1 risk factor is aging. Aging is the problem. And Brian Kennedy has this beautiful explanation that in the past, when we had sick care, all diseases were unrelated. Now we are beginning to see as aging as the main driver of most diseases. So aging must be put at the center of the new health care of the future. And also looking at some of the previous programs, beginning with the #1 program by Matt Keberlein, also from MIT, he talks about aging is flexible. And even among mammalians, we have mammalians that live less than 2 years, and we have mammals also that live over 200 years, like some bowhead whales. So aging is flexible, and not only with mammals, with many life forms. So it is important to understand how aging appeared, and how we can then control and reverse it. And that is why 5 years ago, a fantastic British scientist, a mathematician, David Wood, who studied at Cambridge, England, I studied at Cambridge, Massachusetts, we decided to write a book about the #1 problem for humanity, which is not climate change, it is not terrorism, it is not religion, it is not etc., etc. It is aging. Aging is the big problem of humanity, is the common enemy of humanity. And so we published our book first in my mother tongue, in Spanish, in Spain, and it immediately became a bestseller, both in paper and in Kindle simultaneously. And we are donating all the money to 2 foundations, one foundation in the USA, the SENS Research Foundation, and one foundation in Spain, to incentivize young people to study science, Since the book came out 5 years ago in Spanish, now in its 6th edition in Spanish, it has become a global bestseller. It is right now in 10 languages, and 10 more languages coming next year. So we are really excited. As you can see, it just came out in English a couple of months ago, totally updated, augmented, and it is coming out in Chinese also in a couple of months. So the 3 most important global languages, Spanish, English, and Chinese. And I have a fantastic prologue by Aubrey de Grey and an epilogue by Alex Shaboronkov, who are also very good friends and have been in this program as well. And there are many, many quotes of people working on aging, like George Church, and of course, Brian Kennedy and Andrea Meyer, among many other friends. Now that it is coming soon in Chinese, this is very important in China, because China has reached what is called now peak China, peak China. From now on, the population of China will begin declining. And it is not only declining very, very fast, but China will be overtaken by 2 other countries by the end of the century. As you can see, the global forecast, India and Nigeria. And the population of China will be reduced by 50%. It is a huge demographic crisis in China, but not only in China, in Spain, where I live as well. And this has also made economists to begin thinking about this possibility that stopping aging is very good economically. And there is this new concept of the longevity dividend. the longevity dividend, an idea almost 20 years ago that has been rejuvenated by Andrew Scott, who is an economist at London School of Economics, and David Sinclair, a biologist at Harvard, and another economist at Oxford University, that they talk the incredible monetary gains, financial gains of stopping aging. We are talking about $367 trillion if we stop aging for 1 decade. This number is incredible. It is difficult to comprehend. We are talking about trillions of dollars for stopping aging. Stopping, not reversing aging yet. And the problem now is that 80% of the money goes in the final 20% of the life of the person. And we need to reverse this so that the money goes at the beginning so that people don't age. So we have a Pareto problem now. All the money goes to the end, and then people still die. If people didn't die, it would be fine, but people still die after 80% of the money used at the end of the life of the people. This is critical in Spain because Spain, among the large economies, have the longest life expectancy, and soon it might overtake Japan, which is number one, in 20 years, according to some forecasts. So this is a big problem in Spain. So I like to talk about Spain because Spain 2,000 years ago was the country of non plus ultra. Non plus ultra in Latin because there was nothing beyond Spain in the Roman Empire. Spain was the end of the Roman Empire to the west. But when America was discovered, the name of Spain was changed from non plus ultra to plus ultra, far beyond. The Americas are far beyond Spain. But my goal now is that Spain becomes the country of vita plus ultra, life far beyond, because this is a priority in Spain as the country with the second longest life expectancy of the major economies in the world. And so I created a political movement in Spain, and I was candidate for the European Parliament in the last elections in 2019. I was not elected, but for the first time, I spoke about curing aging, reversing aging in Spanish politics. So this was really a breakthrough in Spanish politics. And this is also important because on October 1st, we celebrate the Day of Older People. This was created over 30 years ago by the United Nations, but now we are moving this into longevity. And we are having a march, a rally in Spain, in the place where we celebrate football, but we should celebrate not just football, like Real Madrid, the best team of the world. We should celebrate longevity. And Longevity Day, October 1st, we have the first rally for longevity so that people understand that this is so important. Why? Because many people are beginning to think that aging is a curable disease. In fact, we have been able to multiply almost by 2 life expectancy of mice, by 4 life expectancy of Drosophila melanogaster, by 10 and some worms like C. elegans. So we know we can extend lifespan. And we even know that there are immortal cells, like cancer cells. This was discovered in 1951. And not only cancer cells are immortal, but also the best cells, the reproductive cells, germ cells are also immortal. So when people tell me immortality is impossible, I say, how is it impossible? It already exists in nature. There are biologically immortal cells, good, bad, and good cells and bad cells, for example, but also immortal organisms like hydras and immortal jellyfish, some medusas. Immortality already exists in nature. And bacteria, the first life forms in the planet with round chromosomes are also considered biologically immortal. That doesn't mean that they don't die. It means that they really basically don't age, that they are biologically immortal. This was championed by Aubrey de Grey, who wrote the prologue of my book, but he was called a charlatan by MIT. My alma mater, Technology Review in 2005 said that this was impossible. Happily, in 2019, MIT changed its mind. And MIT Technology Review had a cover article saying that old age is over if you want it. So, as Arthur Schopenhauer said, all truth goes through 3 stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. And third, it is accepted as self-evident, as we believe by 2045, we will have defeated aging. My friend Ray Kurzweil talks about this in his book, Fantastic Voyage, Live Long Enough to Live Forever. And he talks about the 3 bridges to immortality. 3 bridges, 1, 2, and 3, and then immortality. He talks about this in his coming book. The singularity is nearer, coming next year. He sent me his manuscript to review. And in his book, he talks about 2 magic dates, 2029 and 2045, where we have this convergence of technologies. By 2029 to 2030, we will reach longevity escape velocity. And by 2045, we will have biological rejuvenation. Companies in Silicon Valley are learning that this is true, this is happening. Google created 10 years ago Calico, California Life Company, to solve a technical problem called death. And death will have a technical solution. But not just Google, also Mark Zuckerberg. His foundation is aimed to cure all diseases by the end of the century, including aging. And Microsoft, now that we have sequenced the human genome, they say we can solve cancer very soon. Very soon, in 5 to 10 years, we will solve cancer. And Tim Cook, CEO of Apple, has said that Apple will really remember but what Apple will do in the future about health. So Jeff Bezos as well. Altos Labs, a $3 billion investment to stop aging, to reverse aging. This will be the biggest industry in the history of the planet. We're talking about trillions of dollars, and technology companies are moving in. This will be the biggest ecosystem ever seen in human history, bigger than any industry that we have seen. And even governments like Saudi Arabia created the Evolution Foundation with an initial investment of $20 billion, $1 billion per year for the next 20 years. And also in Dubai. In Dubai, they are interested in this. And Shinja Yamanaka, Nobel Prize in Medicine in 2012, we invited him to Madrid last year, and we gave him an award because we want to collaborate with him about the rejuvenation through cell reprogramming. And there is a Spanish scientist, very famous, Juan Carlos Ispizua Belmonte, who is working on this as well. And obviously people like David Sinclair and many other people. So I'm convinced that we are close to curing aging and reversing aging. And so I plan to be younger in the future, not through a Russian application like FaceApp that can make you younger or older. I plan to be younger through biological rejuvenation. And also, we have to think about this. We have to meditate. This is the biggest dream of humanity, the first dream of humanity. I like to meditate also because, as the Chinese say, there is yin and yang, a lot of yin and yang. And yin yang inside has little yin yang. So this is very, very complex. So again, like the Chinese say, let's light up the world. Don't blame darkness. It is better to light up the world. And I lived 3 years in Japan, and I went a lot to Korea. And you can see there are 2 Koreas, the illuminated Korea and the dark Korea. So we need to know which future we want for us. I hope we go to the illuminated world. So I want to basically finish with 3 final thoughts. This Chinese word that means crisis. Crisis in Korean, in Chinese, and the characters are also used in Korean and in Japanese, has 2 parts. The first part is danger, but the second part is opportunity. Curing aging is the biggest opportunity ever for human history. But of course, there is danger in all of this. So anyway, I invite you also to the biggest conference on anti-aging in the world, which I helped to organize in Anaheim, in California next year. Over 1,000 people from all over the world talking about this. It's called Revolution Against Aging and Death. And to read The Death of Death in any language. So thank you so much for your patience, your time, and I'm open for any questions, exchange, comments, etc. Thank you so much.
So thanks, Jose. First of all, I want to say 94 slides in 27 minutes. I'm impressed. Then I want to ask a bunch of questions, but there's a lot to discuss. But first, I wanted to say, I don't even know this answer. I'm surprised. How did you get into longevity? What took you in that direction?
Well, basically a convergence of things. One is that I am aging myself. I ran 4 times the San Francisco Marathon, and the last time only half of it. And then, I want to keep on running the marathon, but it takes time and health and good condition. And I am aging. I don't feel like I was, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Number one. Number two, my father died. And when someone close to you dies, that makes you to reconsider everything. So the death of my father was very important to me. And then finally, Singularity University. When we founded Singularity University, there were people talking about immortality openly, and I was still working at the energy industry. I was not into biotechnology at the time in 2009. And so that really made me think, people like Aubrey de Grey was an invited professor at Singularity University, and he was talking about curing aging and all of this. So convergence of 3 things. I repeat, my father dying, me aging myself, and the Singularity University and these ideas.
This is a question more for Kurzweil than you, but I think you can handle it. So why 2045? Is that an extrapolation of technological advancement, or what went into that calculation? And what's the standard error?
Yes. In fact, those numbers are from my friend and mentor, Ray Kurzweil. He repeats those numbers for, about 40 years almost. He has been doing this, and the numbers appear again next year in his coming book, The Singularity is Nearer. Again, he has been talking about these 2 dates for a long time. 2029, when we will reach longevity escape velocity, or the Methuselarity, and then 2045, when we will have biological rejuvenation. Indeed, these are based on his extrapolations on exponential technologies advancing very, very fast. He has been wrong before, and in fact, many times. Sometimes because he's wrong because things happen before he expected them to happen. In his latest review about 15 years ago, he was 83% of his predictions. I would say that is the same now. 80%, 85% of his predictions are correct. And when they are wrong, mostly they are wrong because they happen before he predicted them to happen.
So if you were going to list impediments to immortality, what do you think the biggest impediments are?
Mindset. Mindset is a big impediment because until now, we have always died. We have died, so we expect to die. So our mind chip expects us to die. We need to switch this chip. In fact, we have justified death in art, in culture, through religion, through philosophy. There are many people who say that death is needed because it brings renewal, etc., etc. So I think it is our mindset that has to change. Just like today, we can fly, not ourselves with wings, but we can take airplanes and we can go soon to the moon and to Mars through rockets, etc. And we have telephones and we have computers. We will be able to reverse aging, but we need to change our mindset completely. Even the concept of marriage, because marriage normally was until death do us apart. And, until death do us apart will not do well in a world when people can be immortal, basically.
It's like the Meatloaf song, Waiting for the End of Time. I don't know if you know that song.
Yes. Yes. No, but again, the mindset also, but talking about the mindset, I want to talk about philosophy, ethics, and morality. When the Human Declarations of the Declaration of Human Rights was written by the United Nations in the 1940s, the number 1 human right is the right to life. But it should be right number 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5, because if there is no life, there are no rights. There is no liberty, there is no property, there is no nothing. So the number 1 and 2 and 3 right is the right to life, and of everybody. not only of young people or adults, also elderly people. Elderly people have a right to life, all of us. So, and also in advanced economies, in OECD countries, 90% of the people die of age-related diseases. 90%. Of course, there is climate change, wars, terrorism, homicides, suicides, malaria, AIDS, you name all those things. But 90% of the people die of age-related diseases in advanced economies. So if we can do only one thing for humanity, it has to stop aging. This is what causes the greatest amount of pain and suffering in humanity today.
I mean, I've been saying versions of this for a long time too, and I think we both have. And it still surprises me whether you're talking about longevity as a few extra years or immortality. It tends to scare a lot of people, and I think it's pushing them outside of their comfort zone. You made a lot of good cases for the economic benefits of dramatically extending lifespan, and I think there are a lot of arguments we can make that make sense, but there's still are we in that phase? You mentioned that there's three phases, like there's the nobody believes it phase, the pushback phase, and then it was obvious phase. Are we in the nobody believes it phase or the pushback phase? Because I sense some of both right now.
Yes, it is mixed, and in different places it is more advanced or less advanced. But yes, we are in between 1 and 2. However, I think we are close to phase number 3 in 1 decade. We should have results showing that aging can be biologically reversed, and this will change completely the ball game, and it will help to change our mentality. We will see that if dogs, for example, dogs can live longer through biotechnology, then we will want that for us too, because we love our dogs like part of our families. So I think we are close. And this will radically change everything.
Yeah, I think that an important thing is, it seems like we're in a phase now where there's more distrust of science than there used to be. And you mentioned this idea of Arthur C. Clarke of pushing past limits, of daring to accomplish the impossible. And, when you think about the space race or building of nuclear weapons, which maybe, I don't know, we can argue whether that was good or bad, but, there was the daring there. There was a sense that everyone was on board, and especially in the space race, that people were interested in what was happening and supporting the science. And I think not just for longevity, but in general, there's more distrust of science these days. What do you think's driving that?
Well, COVID, for example, I think COVID had so many people making different opinions, and then the anti-vaxxers came into the play, etc. Also, there are people who believe that the Earth is flat. The Earth is flat, even though the Spanish not only discovered America, but Magallanes and Elcano went around the planet from one direction along. So we know the planet is round, but even today, many people believe the planet is flat. Even here in Spain, some people believe the planet is flat.
Are you saying we should trust the Spanish? Is that what you're saying?
Well, anyway, but I think once we have a human on Mars, and I believe this will be in 1 decade, thanks to Elon Musk. And in 2 years, we will have again humans on the moon, and probably in 10 years on Mars. This will change everything. When the first human walks on Mars, it will change more humanity than when Jesus Christ walked on water. And we cannot even verify if that was true, if Jesus Christ walked on water. But we will verify, we will see it real time from Mars when the first human walks on Mars. Actually, when the first human walked on the moon, this very famous phrase, one small step for a man, one huge leap for humanity. So I think we are moving fast. I hope it moves even faster. But again, the industry is growing. The anti-aging, the real longevity industry is growing fast. This didn't exist 20 years ago. even conferences. 20 years ago, there was only one conference on longevity. Now, this year, I have been myself in 20 conferences.
Yeah,
And
it's
next
a bit
year,
overwhelming.
yes. And there will be more and more. And there is also a lot of investment. You know, Jeff Bezos getting into the game, and Altos Labs with $3 billion, Evolution Foundation, Saudi Arabia putting $20 billion. This is just really beginning, I think, and we are soon going to have results. So I am very, very optimistic, and I think we have to be optimistic because this is one thing also Sir Arthur C. Clarke told me. The future begins in our minds. If we are positive, we will probably live in a better world. If we are negative, probably we might even self-destroy ourselves. So these are self-fulfilling prophecies. And I think we are going to cure aging. And again, the science is there. And one more thing, you know, cancer discovered immortality. This is one of the things I like to say. You know, cancer cells discovered immortality. Cancer cells are mutant somatic cells that age, and then they stop aging. And cancer cells discovered this without going to MIT. You know, cancer cells didn't even go to school. Cancer cells don't know how to read, but cancer cells discovered immortality. So if cancer cells did discover immortality, we will too.
Yeah, you know, you mentioned reading a lot of science fiction, and I've done that too. A lot of it is dystopian, you know, but you're really optimistic. So, why is your vision so much more positive? Especially, you know, currently there's a lot of, dangerous things happening in the world and misery. Where does all that? I'm kind of with you on this. Okay, I'm not challenging you, but I'm just wondering where you derive so much optimism from.
Well, when I see how the world is moving, everything, you know, long term, in historic terms, is getting better. Life expectancy. I said, 2,000 years ago, it was 20 years, 25 years. We now can live 80 years and more. We are more educated. We are wealthier. This is also very important. At the time of the Roman Empire, the income per capita was estimated to be less than $1,000 per person per year, $1,000. Today, in some countries, it is already $100,000 per person per year. So, and we are healthier. We are, I think, smarter. And we are going to continue. Also, we are more ethical. I love Steve Pinker. Steve Pinker, who was a professor of MIT, then he moved to Harvard. But Steve Pinker has many incredible books. One is called The Better Angels of Our Nature. And he says how the human condition keeps on improving, and it will continue improving. And in his latest book, which is called Enlightenment Now, he reinforces that case for the advances of humanity, that we live in the best world ever. Even though with the Russian invasion, even with climate change, this is the best time to be alive. In fact, it is so good to be alive now that we are between the last human mortal generation and the first immortal generation. So we just need to hang on for a couple of decades to basically live for as long as we want. And I think this is incredible. Life is beautiful. So I want more life, better life, longer life, healthier life.
Sounds great. Let me bring Anna in because I'm sure we've got a lot of questions from the audience.
Yes, hi, Professor Cordero. Thank you so much for this very thought-provoking talk, and that also shows by the number of questions in the question and the answer list. So somebody wanted to ask, so first of all, the person says, what an amazing presentation, and then would like to ask, what is the biggest thing we can do to reverse age by 10 years?
Well, why only 10 years? I think it should be 20 years, 30 years and more. Okay, right now we are in what my friend Ray Kurzweil talks about the second bridge. He talks about the 3 bridges to immortality. Bridge 1 was in the 2010s, and it meant do what your mother told you. Eat well, sleep well, do exercise, don't smoke, etc., etc. That was bridge 1 in the 2010s. Now, in the 2020s, we are beginning with the first biotechnology treatments. And then that will take us into the third bridge, which is in the 2030s with nanotechnology. And that will take us in the 2040s into rejuvenation technologies and immortality. But coming back to this second bridge of the 2020s, biotechnology, we have the first biotherapies. For example, we are learning about senolytics. There are some senolytics. Also, we have metformin. Metformin is something that we know works, apparently. Also, probably rapamycin, which is now being tested on animals, and even some humans are biohacking on themselves, taking rapamycin. And then the favorite of Brian Kennedy, I know AKG, he loves AKG. That is also very good. And so there are a few things that we can do. And it is good, actually, if we extend our life 10 years, we make it into the second bridge, and then we extend our life another 10 years, and then we live long enough to live forever, or basically for as long as we want. So yes, that question is good. Another thing that I personally do is I force autophagy. To have autophagy, normally you need like 3 days of not eating so that your good, strong cells are hungry and they eat your weak, old cells. So normally every 2 months, I stay 3 days, for 3 days with no food at all, only water or maybe some tea. So that 3-day period every 2 months forces autophagy on my body. And it is very good, I think. It is also good to eliminate cancer cells. And it is free. You know, this is one of the best things. It is not expensive at all. Not eating for 3 days is actually free. So I recommend it. I do it every 2 months.
Okay, well, thank you. Maybe that's also like what you just said, the bridges, that leads into the next question here in the audience, which is, if indeed dying is the biggest problem now, as you mentioned, immortality, if it is achieved, might also become the new biggest problem. What is the current thinking of this scenario?
Well, actually, people like Malthus said that the world was overpopulated 230 years ago. He said there were too many people and there were not enough resources. And that was obviously wrong, very wrong. What changed? Technology. Technology makes us produce more and more with less and less. And we keep on having more technology, and we will keep on producing more and more with less and less. So actually, I'm not worried about having no resources. Also, because we are going to Mars in 10 years. We are going to have all the resources we want, not only on planet Earth, but on the moon and on Mars. So resources are basically unlimited in the universe. And the problem is the opposite, that the population is stabilizing and it is going down. It is going down. I showed the case of China. China will lose half of its population by the end of the century. The same in Spain and in Italy. In Italy, the country of bambinos. There are no children anymore, no bambinos in Italy. The population of Italy will drop by more than half by the end of the century. The same in Japan, in Korea. Many advanced economies are declining very, very fast in population. So we need to stop this population implosion, not explosion. That was the past. That is not true. The population is stabilizing and it is beginning to decline in many countries. And, you know, we actually have advanced so much because we have more people. People not only come with a mouth to eat and with an ass to excrete, we come with a brain. The brain is the most complex structure in the known universe. And the brain helps us to create, to invent, to solve many problems, regardless of what we eat and what we excrete. So we need more people, not less people, more people. And also, if the population increases, this will not be in 1 year or in 10 years. It will be in centuries. And in centuries, humanity will be in many other planets.
Yeah, that's actually, well, that's exactly what somebody here in the audience is asking also, that, yeah, what you just mentioned, that max lifespan has hardly increased over the last few decades. So why are we expecting things to change suddenly, and what is the catalyst for exponential growth?
Yes, that is true. Maximum life expectancy has not increased, but it will. It will, because now we are understanding the mechanisms of aging and how to stop aging and how to reverse aging. So that will increase radically life expectancy. It was not possible until now, but now we know it is possible. And we will discover, I repeat, what cancer discovered, which is how to stop aging. If cancer discovered how to stop aging, we will too. Now that we have sequenced the human genome, and we can find the mutations that stop aging in cancer cells, we will do it with a good purpose to stop aging. So maximum life expectancy will increase exponentially, very fast in 2 decades. So I have no doubt of that in my mind. So we have to keep on working, investing. That is why all the money is coming into the field. That is why this will be the biggest industry in the world in 20 years. And that is why I am so excited.
Maybe I could make one interjection there. I think that, and you mentioned this sort of anyway, but I want to reinforce that point. Let's say we could magically snap our fingers and be immortal now. There aren't going to be any 200-year-old people on the planet for 81 years. So this is not an instantaneous change. It would be a slow change that would be accompanied by many other things happening. And I think there would be unpredictable outcomes to it, but I think most of them would probably be favorable outcomes. But Jose, what do you think about the? Yeah, I always get the question: if I'm going to live to 150, I'm going to get bored. Do you think you'll get bored?
Not at all. All the things I want to do, the places I want to visit, and not just on planet Earth. I want to go to the moon. Imagine spending a honeymoon in the moon, or a honey Mars on planet Mars, singing, dancing, reading, writing, watching movies. There is so much to do. That is why I talk not only about life extension, but also about life expansion. Life expansion. We have to expand our minds. But anyway, if people get bored, that's okay. You can always die. It is not that you will not be able to die. Sadly, death is always around the corner, always around the corner. So there are accidents, and even worse, there are homicides and there are suicides. So death is always around the corner. If you get bored, feel free to die. But I don't think people will get bored in the world of the future. The world of the future will be so much more excited, so much more interesting, with so many more things to do, that it will only get better and better. I am so excited about the future and about life. This is like love. You have to tell your love partners, I love you so much more than yesterday, but less than tomorrow. Less than tomorrow. The same about the future, the same about longevity. We are going to be living longer and longer in the future, and the world will be better and better. So we have to be positive, and also remember, change the chip in our minds, that death was mandatory, that death was necessary, to death being an option. Death will be an option, and those who want to die, well, feel free to die.
Actually, that also leads to the next question. So do you think that we also need an exponential expansion in ethics and moral thinking?
Yes, excellent point. And this is what Steve Pinker talks about his books, The Better Angels of Our Nature and Enlightenment Now. He says how ethics have been improving. 5,000 years ago in the past, cannibalism was ethical. Was not ethical only, it was part of some religions, and it was even nutritious. Cannibalism was nutritious at that time. Now, of course, it is immoral. 100 years ago, there were slaves in many places. Women did not vote. Etc., etc., etc. So we are becoming more ethical, more moral. Also, we are more peaceful. even with the war in the Ukraine, this is nothing compared to what happened 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago. So yes, ethics and morality is improving. We are becoming better human beings, more ethical and more moral. And it is fantastic. It is fantastic. I like to see the future because we are getting better in every sense.
I think one point is whatever happens, we have to democratize it. If it leads to more disparity between the wealthy and the poor, it's not going to be a good thing. And I think we're seeing too much of that now in some countries. And so whatever we figure out how to do, we have to think of strategies to get it to everybody.
Absolutely, absolutely. This has to be for everybody. And immortality or rejuvenation, but biotechnologies for everybody. Like the COVID vaccine, the COVID vaccine was for everybody. It took a bit longer to get to Africa, for example. But all these rejuvenation biotechnologies for everybody, immediately in the whole planet.
So, yeah, now talking maybe about a bit of a more practical aspect of what you expect in the future. So how is AI going to play a role to stop aging?
Fantastic question. AI is truly transformative. It's probably the most incredible technology, together with rejuvenation biotechnologies that are being discovered. And AI is helping with that. For example, AlphaFold that allowed to discover how proteins fold, which was an unsolvable problem or something that would take centuries, thanks to AlphaFold, developed by DeepMind, owned by Google, or Alpha, was an incredible advancement. Now, artificial intelligence is used for drug discovery, for disease recognition and prevention, and many other things. So artificial intelligence is here to help us. And it is actually working with doctors, with human doctors, so that we can massify this. We can spread this to the whole planet. We are going to have telemedicine, finally, real telemedicine for everybody with artificial intelligence. This will also decrease the cost of healthcare, real healthcare around the planet. So yes, I love artificial intelligence, and it is one of the keys to solving the aging problem. Also, because the human genome is 3 gigabytes, and this is difficult for our tiny brains to comprehend or to model or to tackle, but artificial intelligence can do it.
So Anna, one more quick question.
Okay, I'll try to choose a quick one.
And a quick answer too, Jose.
It's a long question, but maybe the answer is quick. I don't know. Wouldn't it be better to improve the productivity of the billions who are severely underemployed and impoverished rather than advocating for a very risky population growth?
We have to do it everything and in parallel. It's like we have to go to the moon and to Mars, and we have to keep on improving the conditions here on planet Earth. I don't think it is an either or question. It is both. When given a choice, take both. So I take both options. We have to do what you suggest, but we also have to keep on improving life expectancy for the planet. And I like to say, my friends, especially those who watch Star Trek, live long and prosper.
That's a perfect ending, Jose, and I'll see you next week. Thanks for coming on the show. I want to remind everyone to use the chat function and panelists and all attendees option. Leave comments and tell us if you like this show. We can have more thoughts about the future and aging and longevity and future shows if this is something that is exciting for everyone. Our Unlock Healthy Longevity Supplements Conference is February 29th and March 1st of next year. Please attend, register. There's going to be a lot of interesting science there. It'll be the first conference focused really solely on supplements as geroprotective interventions. Now, check out our website for the program and great international speakers that we're lining up for this. Also, next week, we'll have a suite of guest speakers about Healthy Longevity's 100th episode. So the webinar turns 100. It's not next week. I apologize. It's October 5th. So in a couple weeks. Since it's a special show, both Andrea and I will be on, and we'll be talking to a suite of different guest speakers from the political, the scientists, other faculty members, and our dean, Chang Yap Singh. So please remember to tune in for that. We want a wide audience. We're going to leave you with a final video tonight talking about the difference between young people and old people. Thanks for joining us. Thanks, Jose and Anna, and see you next in a couple weeks.
She's 19 years old. She looks in the mirror to see how pretty she is. Make sure her eyeliner matches her purse. And it matches this and it matches that. Look at me. Look at me. I look in the mirror to see what new stuff just grew on my body. The older you get, the more your body becomes a farm for foreign growth. You spend more time looking in the mirror after you're 50 than you ever did when you're 19. I can't even walk past the elevator in the hotel I'm staying in without, what the heck is this? I have to brace myself before I sneeze. Do you have any idea what I did to my neck the last time I sneezed? I couldn't turn my head for 2 weeks. Now I feel a sneeze coming on, I have to get into a defensive sneeze position. Okay, spread your legs, loosen, get the knees loose, loose, loose. Okay, look straight ahead, don't turn. Then it's like you're in a car accident. All right, I got my fingers, I got my feet. I can move on to the next sneeze. I want to show you something here. Because there will be signs. You're not always going to be 19. I mean, look around you. Some of these people were 19. And then things change. And there's signs that they're changing. One day you'll walk down the stairs in your house. You'll stop in the middle and go, was I going up or down? One day this will happen to you. I just bought these glasses. Do you know why I bought these glasses? To find these glasses.
I'm feeling like sunshine, like springtime, like something's in the water and I'm taking a deep dive. I'm feeling so weightless, like I'm gonna make it, and nothing in the universe can take this. I can see it clearly now, nothing gonna bring me down.